This is ColoniCast, episode 75. Today we're joined by Devin Welch, who is an all around herpetology turtle guy. He's doing all sorts of things researcher, conservationist, educator. He's got some great social media that we'll definitely talk about later on, and really excited to talk to him about some of his work with turtles throughout the Southeast and elsewhere. Thanks for joining us, Devin.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk about turtles.
Sweet, let's do it. Well, we like to start it out just to kind of get an idea for how you got interested in turtles. Everyone's got kind of a different turtle story, and we all kind of got the bug at a different stage. So I'm curious about you. How did you first get interested?
Yeah, I don't know. I think one of my like earliest memory is me being in Alabama, like playing with frogs and grasshoppers and stuff like that. That's my core memory right there. So I think it kind of just grew from there. I didn't have too much help from the family. I was kind of on my own in terms of getting help into like wanting to be anything naturey or not naturey, but professional, I guess. Nature rounded because
Yeah.
I grew up with a dad that took me hunting and fishing, but that was kind of it for getting outside. So yeah, so I guess I know at one point in my life I classified frogs, lizards, and turtles as like my favorite animals, and I don't know where that came from or why, but that was kind of how it was for a while. And then definitely got into Steve Irwin. He came out, I watched Steve Irwin religiously as a kid. Did all that, while other kids were reading Harry Potter and stuff like that in school. I was always in the nonfiction animal section book or the book section of the library, just like tearing through wolves and whales and this and that. And uh, I don't know, kind of how I just kind of a black sheep in my family just kind of took that on myself. Um, Always wanted to do stuff with animals, wasn't sure what route to take, and decided that, like, after graduating high school, decided like I got to go to college to do something, and figured I like the only thing that really came to mind for me was like maybe I'll go be a vet, as like an exotic animal vet. It's like it'll get me working with all kinds of not cats and dogs but other animals. In my mind, that was the only thing that there was to do professionally. But I went to orientation and kind of told them what I was interested in, and they're like, "Why don't you just go for a wildlife biology degree?" And I was like, "I didn't even know that was a thing." And so they was like, "Well, here you go, do this," and I did that. And in doing that, started working with hellbenders, and then went to South Carolina to volunteer for with spotted turtles and diamondback rattlesnakes and all kinds of other and threatened or rare herps down there. And that got my foot in the door with a conservation organization called the Amphibian Reptile Conservancy, which led me to Florida and doing stuff that I was doing last year, the barber snap turtle and uh, alligator snapping turtle stuff. But it's kind of just one thing after another, just little by little, picking it up, and now it's like that's all I want to do anymore.
Yeah, it's cool. You're one of the guys like there's a surprising number of people, and I guess it makes sense that come up from the Northeast and kind of flood into the Southeast. It's like
Yeah,
so many friends and people I've met just being in Georgia. And I'm one of those from the West Coast. It's like we all
yeah,
converge on it because that's where the reptilian amphibian biodiversity is at, right?
no better place.
No, it's a hub. But it's interesting hearing you say that like, kind of your early interest in it spawned out of kind of a general interest in animals and biodiversity. Like that's for me, I've been thinking a lot recently about, yeah, how did I really get interested in turtles? And it was kind of that just general interest. And then I kind of fixated on it.
Hmm.
Uh, it's just interesting how like to reconnect a little with that just general appreciation for biodiversity and how that kind of gets you into a specific lane.
Hmm.
And, let's just sort of stick with it. I'm curious though with your Hellbender work. So you're out there snorkeling in the streams for the Hellbenders and working maybe on restoration. I don't know exactly, but were you
Everything.
coming everything out there? Yeah. Were you coming across a lot of turtles doing that, like wood turtles, or was
Yeah. So actually, we were focused on hellbenders. I did this for all four of my summer internships throughout college. I was a hellbender technician. Um, Hellbenders were our main focus, but if we saw wood turtles, We were tagging them and marking them and doing recapture studies on them too. But we'd get maybe like 5 a year. That number varies. But yeah, we would anytime we saw a wood turtle, they'd be in the river too, just swimming around. One of my favorite memories, actually, it's funny. It sucks a little bit, but it's funny actually too. I do videos. I've been taking videos for a long time, like way before I ever started social media, and just never had anywhere before TikTok or Instagram or Reels. I guess were a big thing. I never got on Vine, but making short videos. Um, I've been saving up videos to make stuff out of for a long time. But I'd always have a GoPro with me when I was doing that work, and twice I would release the Hellbender after we worked it up and everything, and I would kind of just follow with the camera, and it would take me right to a wood turtle. It's happened one time in the river, and I was like, "Hey, we got a wood turtle. We gotta process this. We gotta take it up and work on it." The other time, I followed the Hellbender, and it went under a rock, and I kind of just put the camera down and then left, and then looked at the footage later, and under that rock there was a wood turtle just sitting there too, and so I was like, "Well, we missed that one, but it was still cool to see."
That's wild. But so they're as they're going back to because they sort of live under rocks, that kind of thing, like really wedged in there, from what I
Mhm.
understand. So as they're going back to that, you'd come across the wood turtle out in the stream, or also kind of in that rock.
Well, that one that went under a rock, it was kind of like it was off. It had like a good probably 6 inches of space underneath the rock, and I just kind of shoved the camera in there and pulled out and went back to release on the next one. Um, so that was the first time I ever seen a wood turtle under a rock in the stream. But I usually like I come across like I swim around here just for fun all the time, and they'll just be wandering through. Usually shallower stuff, but I've seen them in good like 40-foot across streams. I probably get to like 12 feet. I've seen them just hanging out in there, crossing or hanging out.
Yeah, so the wood turtles, they're so different. I feel like a lot of northeastern turtles a little more charismatic and unique, as you go individual to individual species, compared to the southeast. Like you've got a lot of different cooters, a lot of different map turtles, that sort of thing. Whereas each northeastern turtle's pretty specific and unique and interesting. But the wood turtles I've done a little bit of stuff just out looking for them and up in the Northeast. And one of the things I noticed, and I'm curious if you've seen this, is they would bask in like 60 degrees. If it was sunny, it was fine. And they just go on the shore of like banks that kind of run directly into the water. The vegetation just meets the water line. Beautiful habitat. Did you see a lot of basking out there, or was it mostly aquatic activity?
Um, in terms of me seeing wood turtles, it was usually aquatic activity, but when in turtles in general, yeah, it can be amphibians up here, amphibians reptiles up here are very different, very active at different times of year than down in Florida where I've been working for the last couple of years. Um, you get that first warm rain in the spring, and amphibians and reptiles, well, usually mostly amphibians at first, and then reptiles follow after. But they pop off, they go crazy for that first warm rain, and the like. There could be snow on the ground, there could be ice still out, but if it's warm enough to get them, their blood flowing, they'll start moving, getting ready for those ponds. They want to be the first ones there. Um, Turtles are pretty similar. I'd say this once they're kind of thawed out, it could be like air temperature could be real cold, but if it's a clear sky and that sunshine, and they're trying to get up to it. So I've definitely seen them basking in really cold weather. Snapping turtles will kind of sit there on the edge. Um, yeah, I've seen them. The water temperature is still freezing, but if they can like kind of get their shell poked out a little bit, they'll sit there and enjoy that sunshine.
Yeah, yeah, that's the phenology of it and everything is interesting. Have you are there a lot of this is something interesting to me, like field skills and how people do things in the field varies, and you'll pick up someone who'll be out in the field, they'll do something like, wow, I never thought of that. It just makes something a little bit easier. Have you picked up a lot of things that you apply to turtle work from working with amphibians, or anything maybe unusual that works for you?
Hmm. Me, I guess it all. I mean, everything ties into everything. I'd say more. It's actually funny when it comes to like looking for animals and doing surveys and stuff like that. It doesn't quite apply to the springs because things are moving so much. But I have a good eye for just finding things sitting still in the woods.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd walk those creeks and rivers and stuff and see, every rock looks about just about the same, but then you'd see like a triangle would catch your eye, or a little bit of shine on some of those shark teeth would kind of just like stand out just a little bit from the surrounding rock. And I think that kind of thing I've applied to just seeing the difference in the pattern. So definitely I've come across spotted turtles in ponds covered in pollen. I've seen them just like their spots kind of just gently moving around underneath the surface. I've seen box turtles just sitting still in the woods, but covered in by grass. Diamondback rattlesnakes are actually the hardest thing to see. They have a beautiful pattern that stands out, but if they're perfectly still, they're harder to see than anything else.
That's interesting. Like the search image kind of transfers between the fossils and turtles. That's
Mhm.
something that, yeah, I still am not great at finding fossils. I just don't have the search image, and it's like when I'm looking for turtles, it's like everything is invested in that. But yeah, that's cool that you kind of got it through fossil hunting and then said, "Damn, I'm seeing other things." Like
Yeah.
this sort of is the same procedure just applied to an animal.
Yeah,
But
it's for me, it's like as long as I get that first search image of like what I'm supposed to be looking for, I don't know, my brain kind of just clicks on for that. I One of the coolest things was I had a really good friend in Tallahassee show me uh we were working with frosted flatwood salamanders. I had never seen their eggs before in person. I've seen pictures, and sometimes pictures help, but seeing it in person just makes all the difference.
yeah.
Took me out and showed me frosted flatwood salamander eggs one time, and then from then on, I went out, and when we started searching, it was just like I was seeing them everywhere. And I think that first time getting that search image really helped us to find that first one and just go off from there.
No, that's really interesting, we can let's get into that a little. You discovered, I don't know the exact specifics of this, but you discovered a new population of frosted flatwood salamander, which that's a big deal right now, especially
Yeah.
in the southeast. And I'm curious. Yeah, that's interesting that you saw the eggs once and then it sort of went on from there. But were there other things about their ecology that you had to learn to kind of narrow that down, or was just being able to find them the top thing?
No, it was everything, all the above. I found it, but it was like a teamwork thing. I'm very proud of that we got that done. We got in partnership with the property owner, um, private property. Luckily, it wasn't state or federal. We got in contact with them. Started looking at their property for like the year prior.
Well,
We just pop out there periodically and do, see where it looked like good habitat, see what might be able to be habitat for that for them eventually, what maybe might be habitat for them now. And we were out there never during like the right time to see them, because just like most amphibians down there, and all the mole salamanders specifically in the southeast are only active really during the winter when it's cooler and it's wet. And so we started working on that property kind of coming into the spring. Didn't have much time to look around for them because they go back underground. But the next year came around, and we kind of identified a handful of ponds or wetlands that were, seemed pretty good. And there was like one that just like blew all the other ones out. And so we focused on that a little bit, coming up to larval season. So there wasn't, probably weren't going to see adults out. It was way too late for eggs. But if we looked around, I was focusing on, I think in general we were doing like still a habitat survey, but my mind was still kind of focused on like, what if we see one? It's like there's not supposed to be any out here. Nobody knows if there being any out here. But I was like, I'm just gonna keep my eye out anyway, and just happened to like wasn't even bent over, just walked up to a puddle and looked down at my feet, and there was like a little tiny salamander moving through the water, and I was like, that's it. And so I yelled for my coworker to come over, and in the time that it took for her to get over there, I lost it. It went off somewhere. The puddle was only like, a foot across by like 3 feet wide, but I was like, it was like, I might be hallucinating, but I think there's one in here. And she got down, we got down, and just kind of sat for a while and watched the water, and then we moved a little bit of grass here and there, and It was like 3 minutes later, it popped back out, and she's like, "I got it." I was like, "There we go. We got a salamander." It was one of the most exciting, probably one of yeah, the most exciting um, things that I've ever gotten to do in the in life in general, but especially in the conservation field. It marked a big deal because yeah, like I said, it was the first frosted flatwood salamander found in on private lands in a couple decades probably. Um, but that meant we got to kind of work with the landowner to make some rules, and it was a lot less, I don't know, restricted by what we could do because it wasn't on a refuge or on national land. So it was really cool.
That's sweet, and they're more. I seem to recall. I don't know a ton about this species, but the habitat loss and degradation is a big issue for them. I recall seeing something going around recently. People just building right over the ephemeral
Yeah,
wetlands, that sort of thing. So private land, I imagine that's a really big thing, right? Because this is someone that's conservation minded that they can
yeah.
really protect them. That's
We can talk
awesome.
with the landowner and kind of give them suggestions on what we, as maybe not experts, but as people that know a lot more about, what they should be, how they should be managed. Um, and they're open to suggestion for with us, and so we're like kind of doing everything by the way we know it. We think that it should be done, which is like, you talk to the people that have been doing it for a long time, and like, yeah, hopefully, like, we want to do it that way, and so we're just going with what everybody knows, and like I said, just kind of trying to get that all done and the best way for the animal, more than anything, the best way for the animal.
Yeah, no, that's great. But and so when you first found this younger one, it disappeared for a second. That must have been a little scary.
Yeah, like I said, I was standing up, like fully standing up, not bent. Like usually, if I'm looking for something, I'm kind of getting as close as I can to it. You're bent over, you're on your knees, or you're something like that. I was just standing up, saw it, like immediately was like, I gotta get, because my coworker is more obsessed with them than I am, and so I was like, you gotta get over here, like I got one. And she's like, one what does that mean? Because she was, like I said, we were doing a habitat assessment, so she was in the mind of looking for what habitat could be manipulated or this or that, but I was fully like, yeah, I'm doing a habitat survey, but where are the salamanders at? Saw it, bent down, got like a decent look, but I wanted her over here before I touched it or anything, just to enjoy the moment. And I looked back down, and it was not there. But I wasn't too worried about getting it in hand because, like I said, it was in a very restricted puddle. But yeah, she got over there, and I was like, I don't think I was hallucinating, but it might have been. But now that she found it, and we were like, okay, we got it. Took all our pictures, called all the people we needed to call. um, and yeah, just partied a little bit for that night. Came back the next night, I think, and found two more. And so,
Yeah.
um, yeah, just followed that up and have been going really hard to follow that up ever since.
That's awesome. Yeah, moments like that are just, you can't make that up, and it just sort of happens too. It feel like a lot of those things happen when you least expect it too. When you're not out looking for something, you'll find it. It's
Yeah, don't put too much effort in because you'll never find it.
yeah, but that's I guess that makes sense with I'm just accustomed to turtles. If there's a turtle and you look back down and it isn't there, that's a time for panic. But like a salamander,
Absolutely.
that's a little easier. Yeah. I with the springs, and I'm sure you've got some crazy, exhilarating experiences from diving for turtles, that sort of thing. Does anything come to mind with that in particular?
Um, two for sure. Maybe. Well, I could probably have the list go on. Um, when I'm doing turtle, the spring surveys, you've done with uh, sorry, Santa Fe. If you don't like you've done with Santa Fe, I started with Turtle Survival Alliance, and would do their surveys. I think I've done something like six or so springs,
Nice.
and yeah, there's been times. My tactic is usually like trying to find the places that other people aren't looking for turtles, and so it's easier to go down the middle and just kind of keep your eye out for all the turtles that are running, and that's a very important job. I usually either stick to the back of the group or find a way in on the side where, like, the water's only a foot deep, but there's weeds and there's plenty of places for turtles to hide, and that's where I like to be. And so more of the time than not, I'm actually crawling through the water rather than swimming. But there's turtles that love hiding in the shallow stuff. And once I was swimming through some of the kind of the reeds. It wasn't really the algae, the thin stuff. It was like actual stalks of little plants coming up at one of the state parks. And I came up kind of just crawling through, poking my face through first, and parted some of the grass. And there was a big tail. I kind of, it took my brain a second to process what it was, but it was a giant tail in front of me. And so I went to go grab it. I think I know I went to go pull my camera out because it was just sitting there. It didn't quite see me yet. But as I was moving my camera up, another tail from on top of it started to slide off. It's like, oh, I got to get this now. And so I reached up and grabbed one and grabbed the other, and it was two common snapping turtles like sitting on top of each other in the grass. I don't think I interrupted anything too serious, but I definitely stopped them from doing something out there. But got two probably 20-pound common snapping turtles at once, and was just like sitting there holding them, waiting for somebody to bring me a bucket because it's a little harder to swim with those things than.
Like a similarly sized alligator snapping turtle is much easier to deal with, especially underwater. You know,
Mhm.
yeah, that's really interesting. Common snappers are real. Like
They're wild.
I don't yeah, they're cool and it's fun to just watch them. Like alligator snapping turtles, usually I haven't snorkeled up a ton of them, but they're always kind of just sitting at the bottom. You know, you get them under a log jam or something. But common snappers are pretty active. I mean, I've seen them moving through cypress knees, and it's just really it's fun to just follow above them and see that sort of thing. But that's cool. You got two of them.
Yeah, one of my other moments that come to mind was another common snapping turtle, and even like I'm not, yeah. So yeah, either way, I sorry, I was trying to figure out what path to take.
Yeah,
But yeah, so I came up to this big common snapping turtle just sitting on the bottom, and it wasn't doing anything. It wasn't running. It wasn't going away. It wasn't. It was just chilling. And so I was like, well, I'm gonna give that animal exactly what it's giving me. It's being calm. I'm not gonna like grab it, try to scare it, or anything like that. I think a lot of people, they see it and they get excited and they like grab it and try to get back to the thing as quick as possible, get it back to the processing station. I didn't even grab the animal. I just kind of put my hand up underneath and just let it kind of float along with me, and showed some of the other divers were around and they saw it, and I was like, just kind of, we don't have to grab this thing. We just got to be calm with it and it'll be cool. And yeah, I just kept my hand under it and kind of just like floated it back, and it never tried to swim off, never did anything crazy. And they were like, that blew my, like, that was the most majestic thing I've ever seen. I was like, they're really cool animals, and they get that bad rep, but if you're cool with them, if you're calm with them, or like I apply this to every animal, except for alligators. Alligators are a little different, but most animals, you be calm with them, and usually they'll be calm back. And so the common snapping turtles, it's just like you be gentle with them, and especially underwater, you know, they're the most calm creature out there. They can be wily when you get them riled up, but in general, a lot of the common snapping turtles I've seen swimming around have like, I mean, they do just sit there when you finally get them in hand, or when you um just kind of hang out there with them. They're just curious as, I guess, as you are if you're calm with them.
yeah, right. It's like the more you fight back when you've got them, the more they're gonna fight back. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, if you're gentle with them.
Actually, going back to a previous question about applying like what I learned from amphibian stuff to turtles and stuff, the hellbenders, if you try to grab a hellbender, you're not going to be able to hold on to that thing. It's going to freak out. It's going to run away. They're very slimy. And if you grab, the tighter you try to grab them, like they slip out like a bar of soap. So if you're going to try and pick up a hellbender, try to like grab one, the more gentle you are, the easier it is. And so
Interesting.
same with turtles.
Yeah, just palm them kinda. That's, I imagine the one where it might not apply so much is the soft shells. That's
Yeah.
probably a tougher yeah, you just gotta pounce them, but, they're tough. I mean, you've had
I
some
I have
experience.
I have swam up to, so you gotta keep them on edge, because with
Yeah.
soft shells, I've swam up to them really slow, and sometimes they'll sit there and let you get close, but I think they have like a little bubble around them. If you get inside that bubble, they freak out. But I've definitely like seen them across the way and just kind of went into like just slow mode and just kind of got up to it, and then it was like, yeah, within that last couple inches, couple feet, that's when you got to like get ready for them to just burst, because they'll go, and you have to try and keep up with them, and they are the fastest turtle out there. So good luck to you.
Yeah, I thought I was a fast swimmer. One of these recent surveys, it was kind of a precarious position, but the whole group, like you said, I like to kind of be on the side or I move into the deeper sections, but I'm kind of all over the place. But I was on the left side, and the big group is a little bit behind, and they're coming down. So the silt is coming down. I'm just trying to beat the silt,
Yeah.
and I'm coming in on the left. It kind of bowed out, almost like a floodplain area, and I'm just snorkeling. All of a sudden, I just see this soft shell come up, and it just bolted. And so I'm like, you don't have any time to think. I just bolted for this thing, and it hit the silt, the line of silt that was getting kicked up, and that thing was gone. There's no way that's not going to happen. But yeah, just they're cool to try to get. It's like that's the rush.
hmm I've definitely lost them in the silt. It's like once they hit that, if they sometimes they like to turn around. I've seen them. They think that you're still following them, and they'll turn around and come back out. So I usually get to the silt line and just sit there and wait. And sometimes they have pop back out. But no, I've lost a couple that way. One of my favorite soft shell turtle catches was, everybody's doing the spring, looking around. One of the springs is like particularly algae ridden on the bottom, and they called me over. I'm not here to brag or anything, but I'm a pretty good turtle catcher, and so they called me over and said, hey, they lost a soft shell over here. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna go in there and look for it. And it was probably maybe like six, no, it's probably like 7 or 8 feet deep. And then it was just all algae on the bottom. They said it went in there somewhere. So I just went to the bottom and just like started fanning, like wiping my hand through the algae, and eventually hit something kind of soft, kind of hard, kind of soft, and pinned the turtle right there through the algae, just kind of like mowing the algae down, and got the turtle.
Dang, that is impressive. Yeah, that's tough. And I recall at some of those surveys, someone gets something big or whatnot. There'll be a few people that call in, and I've definitely heard your name. You and Jack definitely a lot of the time. It'd be good if he was, he could give some. He's got some crazy catches like that. Yeah,
I
just
believe it. Yeah.
yeah. Well, that's sweet. I mean, maybe we could go back to some of the stuff that you were doing with the ARC and the Amphibian Reptile Conservancy, and you were working kind of in the Panhandle region. We can leave it at that. But in some of these surveys you were doing for the salamanders and such, were you coming across a lot of turtles and they're chicken turtles, that sort of thing up there? What were some of the experiences with those?
In Florida specifically, a lot of the wetlands, they're just not overrun. But if you're gonna find any turtle in those wetlands that the salamanders inhabit, it's the mud turtles and the musk turtle. Well, mostly mud turtles. It's just like they both the salamanders and the turtles love being in like these little holes in the mud. And a lot of times during egg searching or just walking around in the wetlands, there's just mud turtles all over the place, and the crayfish burrows and whatnot. Um, in scouting out new areas, when you're kind of going from pond to pond, the in between, that's when you find the box turtles and the chicken turtles, and sometimes even, what have we seen? I'll see a lot of like sliders, usually a lot of dead slider shells. But they definitely walk, from pond to pond when they want to. There was one pond in particular that wasn't salamander at all. It was very froggy. But I got waders on, and it was a big pond, and it got up to about my chest. But I'd walk around in there, and the most abundant turtle in there was a chicken turtle, which is kind of weird. Like they're known for moving like pond to pond, and being here or there, but I'd caught like I think three within like a 15-foot section multiple
Wow,
times. Like they hang out, and that's like a really good pond for them.
that's interesting. Were there environmental things about it that were different, or it was just kind of
I think it was just kind of a pond on not there's ponds all around. This one was just bigger and deeper than the rest, and so I don't know if it was just kind of like a haven. It was a lot of vegetation, so there's plenty of places to hide in there. Um, and so I think that might have been a thing. It was just it was the surrounding ponds were, kind of just one little pond. Like it'd be the wetland was bare, like there was no trees around, and then as you kind of got away from the pond, trees started to shroud, have the overstory. But this pond was just wide open, lots of reeds and grass throughout the entire thing. And I think that having the deeper water with plenty of food in there and plenty of cover, I think was probably the factors that did it for him.
That's really interesting. Yeah, they're such strange turtles in every regard. It's like even just going into the osteology of the skull, like the fissures that the nerves go through in the skull are flipped from what you'd expect in a normal amidid turtle. It's like that's how deep
Weird.
how strange they are. Yeah, but one thing I'm always curious because they are like ephemeral turtles for the most part, and like you said, move around is how what they're eating and how much that varies between place to place. I don't know if that's a tough thing to observe, but did you have any observations of foraging or diet or
No, I don't think I have anything personal experience with it. Um, I guess if I held on to some longer, I could have got some fecal samples, but no,
yeah,
I've
yeah.
never seen anything yet.
Yeah, and I mean, that's more of like if you're targeting them specifically for a dietary analysis, maybe you do. But yeah, that's
Mhm.
interesting. I think broadly, like a lot of invertebrates, that sort of thing they're consuming and stuff they can get opportunistically. And that you're like you said, generally interested in a lot of animals, and you make a lot of videos with spiders, insects, that kind of thing. I'm curious if you've seen the interaction of invertebrates with turtles in any capacity.
I think the biggest thing that comes to mind, and I should have done research on this, the turtle leech, which is like that's a very
Mm.
specific animal leech that kind of only relies on turtles, and so that's probably the biggest one that comes to mind. Um, I can't really. Maybe there's some predatory insects like the big predaceous diving beetle or the water bug that that might eat little turtles. I'm sure it's happened plenty of times. I don't know how many times it's been documented, but I've seen them eat some pretty big things. But yeah, no, the leeches you find those sometimes by the hundreds on big like snapping turtles' faces or in the mouth. I've seen them, in some barbari. Um, so yeah, they're just a weird, very exclusive animal that doesn't really do too much harm individually, but when they crowd up like that, can definitely drain some energy out of a turtle.
Yeah, they're real interesting. That's cool that you've seen them with it on Barbers. You said Barbers map turtle. That's yeah.
Yeah, like in the mouth on the crushing plate, just like I don't know. I've seen it multiple times. It's a weird place to hang out, but I mean, as long as they're outside of the chomping force, they're good there.
Yeah. I've seen them like go into the like almost where the internal the nares comes in, in the maxilla. It's like there'll be kind of a groove there, and they'll like lodge into that. That looks
Yeah.
crazy uncomfortable, but I guess that's the best place to be because there's blood flow, and like you said, you're not going to get crushed.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's the leeches are real interesting. I think we've got like you, I started with the TSA, the NAFTA surveys in
Okay.
Texas. Actually, I would go out from California when I could, and I think we've got an unofficial record for the most amount of leeches on a snapping turtle. We pulled 575 off of a single common snapping turtle. That was just like that. Like you said, I'm surprised. I was surprised when I looked into it how sterile they are. They're not
Mhm.
transmitting really anything, but just in mass like that, they can take so much blood they can do a decent amount of damage.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. And so I guess that you so working on the panhandle and that sort of thing, you started diving in a lot of these big Blackwater rivers. And I'm sort of curious, what was your first? Because a lot of people would not do that for obvious reasons. That's a little bit, but it's worth the payout in my opinion. But what was the first dive like, and what sort of prompted you to do it, and why'd you keep coming back?
Okay. So this is a kind of a it all ties in, but it's kind of a lengthy story. um, I heard from a good biologist friend in Tallahassee that Barber's map turtles were there was a weird population there, historically, forever going back even into the fossil record, um, Barber's map turtles have occupied three rivers in Florida, and all of a sudden, as of the 90s, there's this fourth river that has Barber's map turtles in it. It's like, well, where were they before? They weren't in that river before the 90s, so why are they there now? And so I was like, well, what has been done on it? What research can you find? Like, who's done anything on it? He's like, well, I've done a visual survey, but other than that, and that was like 2014, 2015. Other than that, nobody's really done anything with this population. That's not been documented where they've come from or like how many there are, other than this visual survey, this estimation of the population. And so I was like, well, we have a decent amount of downtime during the summer, considering we're doing flatwood salamander stuff. It's like we're trying to find habitat that we can restore, and so in between restoring habitat during the summer and finding the next property to work on, there was enough downtime. I was like, well, we have permits to work with this animal and nobody else is doing it, so why don't we try to look into what we can do for that? And I drew inspiration completely from TSA and the turtle surveys, because I've done a couple by that point. I think I've probably done like three, and I became obsessed with it. Swimming in the river in the in the clear springs to catch turtles, I loved it. And so I was like, well, what can we do to try and catch Barber's map turtles? You can't really trap with bait. They don't really go after food the same way a lot of other turtles do. You can't do they're mollusk eaters, and so scenting, you can't really. It's hard to scent with mollusks. I think maybe that's the next thing to try, is figure out how to get a bait that's specific to those map turtles. But no, so I was I was like, well, if nobody's done any research on them, I like to swim. Let me just see if I can swim in here and catch these guys. Uh, my first introduction to the river was in, I think, July, and it was not a good time to catch turtles in there. The river changes so much throughout the year. I jumped in and took videos, and I look back at them and it's like I can't believe I even did that when I did it. Because like I look at them now and you go 5 feet below the surface and you look up and the sun is this pin of a red dot up there. It's like blood red. It's the smallest little thing. It's hardly penetrating 5 feet down, let alone the sometimes like 12 feet that you have to go and do. Probably more than that in some spots. But yeah, it was crazy. I was out there with people, and I didn't go searching around too much. That was just like an introduction to the river. That wasn't even turtles weren't even on my mind at that point. That was just like me seeing the river for the first time, swim around just to see what it was like. And yeah, it was blood red and like really dark, and that's just because the time of year, the tannins hadn't flushed out by then. But came back and checked on the river a couple times, and eventually it got to clear, like having a clarity of more than 4 feet, 5 feet, 6 feet sometimes. And it would change by the weather. So if there's rain, like you just don't go out there for a couple days, maybe a week or two before it clears back up. But yeah, eventually it got to be where you could see about 6 feet, and that's all you need. If you can surprise the turtles and sneak up on them, if that gives you plenty of time to get a hold of them. They have like a 1 or 2 second delay in their brain. They see you and they sit still for a second, and then they're like, oh crap, that's a person, and they take off. They figure out that it's not something that they want to hang around for, but it's usually, I don't think they're used to seeing people swim around like I was doing, so they didn't have any. Their first instinct was like, what is that? It's kind of funny. So yeah, so I'd get in there, and we dedicated a 4 kilometer section to them, just to try out from point A to point D, and figured out eventually that the first section wasn't really good habitat. Weren't very many turtles. Was a little too deep for what we were going on, and had a few too many alligators. So cut that part out. Got into the other sections and saw a lot fewer alligators. Saw a lot more turtles. Saw a lot more habitat for them. The first day, the second day, the third day were all very different. First day, I'd say probably had, I mean, the visibility for the first week we were out there, I probably had like 4 feet. I was still learning how to swim in it. It's you got to learn how to do it. I can't teach anybody how to do it. You got to like not take it slow, but also take it slow. I had so many goosebumps on my head from running into logs. I face planted on so many logs, just swimming through, trying to, see the turtles and get to them quick enough. And I definitely like dove from, I was probably in ankle deep water and just wanted to get out, and I dove straight into a log. Didn't even see it. A lot of learning, a big learning curve there. But by like the third day, I figured out how to kind of stop myself when a log or something came into view. And so it's just like you're moving along, you can't see more than like 2 or 3 feet in front of you, and you're going at a good pace of, I can't even give you the speed, but fast enough where if you're just coasting through the water, you're going fast enough that it hurts when you hit a log. Um, but would got to the point where I could stop myself kind of on a dime once it came into view. Uh, but what I learned to do, so the first day, I think I had like 7 turtles, and that was all kind of by luck. Some of them probably were basking. The second day, I think we got 8 turtles. The third day, we got 15 turtles, and then the fourth day, we got like 35 turtles. And so, like, that's my progress. It was like not very good, not very good. Okay, we're learning something. Okay, now I got it. I'm good. I can find the turtles. I can catch them. I know what they're doing. I know where to find them. I know where to look. Um, and so we'd go and do one, section of our 4 kilometer stream. We'd do, 1 kilometer or two if we could do it, if we had the time of the day. Um, but I would just swim zigzagging across the river up and down, and just look for logs, look for log jams, and usually, so a lot of times you'd find them all hanging out in the same like little area. And so I'd go and it would just be kind of getting a log. I'd see a log. I'd come up to it from like perpendicular. I'd see it from the side. I'd back up and I'd go to one end, and I would just go along the whole coast of the log, and it'd be, the male barber's nap turtles. I've got plenty of video of it. I need to put more out there. I probably only shared like a tenth, if that, of what I've actually like seen down there. There's a lot of cool stuff. But the male turtles would just sit on the side of these logs and just kind of like be hanging off. And like I said, they take a second. So if you're swimming along at a good pace, they'll sit there, and by the time you get up to them, you can just pick them up and they don't haven't moved yet. But if you sit there and watch them, they'll take off. But yeah, you come along, just grab a turtle, grab a turtle, grab a turtle. By the time you have 3 in your hands, you're either coming back up for a breath, or if there's a lot down there, I think I've stuffed. I've brought back in one go 9 turtles to the boat once, and it was 4 in my hands and 5 in my wetsuit. I just stuffed them down in there because there was just too many to leave. And if you get a spot where there's a lot of turtles and you have to come back to take some to the boat, they spread out. So it's like get as many as you can while you can, and that's what I was doing. It was just like following that log, going down to it, and trying to get as many turtles in one go as you can. And in the Blackwater, plenty of opportunity to come across barber's nap turtles. I think definitely over. I probably only did it for like, I guess if you put all the days together, it's probably like 2 weeks. Um, and it'd be about at least one alligator snapping turtle per day, if you did all the number crunching.
That's really interesting, especially like just thinking about next steps in turtle conservation, turtle research. I think the snorkeling surveys for map turtles is huge because that's not really it's not the same thing like you've mentioned as doing a spring survey because that's tougher water to navigate. There's kind of a different feel for it. And I just got back from doing some stuff in the panhandle as well. And oh, it was cold as hell, but it was like it's a very different thing. It's not clear water. You've got, like you said, you navigate a little different. You're more deadwood, that kind of thing. But that's because all the surveys for map turtles have been spot scope type of things, or because you can't trap them, that becomes challenging. So
Basking
yeah,
surveys are probably we're gonna. I think we might try to do basking surveys during the basking time. So that's when visual surveys are the most effective, and if you can get basking traps out, that's what I've seen. That's what I've vaguely talked to Dr. Pete Linderin about, and so I think that might be kind of another thing that's like semi-reliable at least.
yeah, it'd be, if anything, interesting to compare. See your hand capture versus the trapping and see what's the difference. Because yeah, that's like how good are the spot? I mean, spotting surveys, you're seeing a lot of turtles, but you're really getting the snapshot of how many are in there. Can you make a
Mhm.
abundance inference? I don't know. But that's
That is next year's adventures. Doing both in the same, because we did a vague visual survey count, but that was not during the right time of the year. And so next year, hopefully, we're gonna get out there and do visual surveys in the spring, and then do hand capture surveys whenever the water's clear enough to do it. And then yeah,
that's
have the data right there, comparable, same year, different tactics, and just see what it looks like in the same exact stretch of the river.
That's sweet. Yeah, we went out with. I've been out with Dr. Lindemann last year after the TSA conference, like south in Georgia, for barbers as well, and like those the basking traps are really interesting. But we didn't get a ton of turtles in that stretch of river. Maybe it was not a lot, but I figured there probably are more if you were to take snorkels in there. But that could just be luck of the draw. We were only there for a few days, but yeah, just having a robust data set, especially where you're working a unique region, that's going to be fascinating.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, if people are capable, if people are willing, that was the biggest thing. Is I got told I was maybe not the smartest for trying to do blackwater, hand sampling, hand capture surveys. But I was like, I'm willing to do it. I want to try it. Nothing stopping me other than fear of running into something scary. But you see a couple alligators, you kind of learn how they behave, and you learn how not to run into them, and you're pretty you're pretty good. But they're not the scariest thing down there. There's a lot more fishing line. That's the scariest thing down there, is all the trash, all the fishing line that you might get tangled up in. So um, yeah, I mean, just kind of learn how to deal with it.
With the alligator snapping turtles you were seeing in there, on your Instagram and social media, there's so many videos. Like there's one that stands out that it was a big male that was kind of nestled next to a deadwood piece, and you came up on that and just sitting out there and diving down, and that's you can't beat that experience. It's just one of a kind. I mean, were there any particularly interesting individuals you got? Any unique characteristics, or I mean, what was it like? Where were they found? All the different things.
Yeah, I've seen them tucked under solid rock, like a bed or rock wall came down, and there was a little crack underneath. I've seen them tucked there. Usually they're tucked under logs, big logs, either with their head facing out or their tail facing out. But I've also come across them just sitting out, like nothing around them whatsoever, just completely sitting out in the open. And the open is still like, I don't know, if I'm at the surface and looking down, I can't see them. But if I go down 5 feet and they're another 5 feet away, I can start to make out their shape and then get closer and see them. Um, I think one of my actually my very first part, my first map, alligator snapping turtle. I love, one of my favorite things to do, just like the hellbender, is I'll release the animal and I'll just follow it with a camera. And so many times I release a barber's nap turtle, or I release something, a turtle, and follow it with the camera, and it leads me to another turtle. My very first alligator snapping turtle, I think we released I want to say like our fourth barber's nap turtle, a big female. Let her go, followed her with the camera, and she took me to my very first alligator snapping turtle, and I freaked out a little bit, but it was a little guy. It's probably about this big. It was I wish I knew the weight on it. I don't think we measured. I forget if we measured that guy, because that was kind of our first experience. It was like, well, if we're seeing alligator snapping turtles out here, we can start taking that on them. But it wasn't until after the second or third one we decided to start doing that. Um, but yeah, let a barber snap turtle go. Followed her with the camera. She led me straight to this very young alligator snapping turtle, very spiky, really cool. Brought it up, showed my coworker, and we had a good time with it. Let it go, and I'm trying to think if that one led me to another turtle. That one might have led me to more barber snap turtles. But yeah, again and again, I'd release barber snap turtles, or I'd be swimming along, and part of catching turtles down there in the Blackwater is you come across a lot of turtles, and they're not all barbers map turtles. There's a lot of cooters and a lot of sliders in there, and so you got to kind of identify them as you go. And they're easy to identify, but sometimes you just I just swim past them. But early on, I was just catching every turtle just because it was fun. Those first couple days, I was like, well, I'm not seeing much yet, so it's come up and catch them. I caught a slider, I think. and just let it go, and just followed across the bottom. Actually, it was funny. I was kind of just I had my hand on its back and was kind of just like pretending it was like pulling me around, just letting it go around on the bottom, and it went under this log, and right next to where it went in was a giant alligator snapping turtle head, and so I came back up for a breath, went back down, and I think by that point we were measuring them and stuff like that. So I worked it out, got it out of the log, had a flashlight in my hand, and it was dangling from my wrist. I think this style here. So cord wasn't quite this long, but I had a flashlight on my hand, had this like that, and had a GoPro strapped around it, and so it was kind of like one unit: the GoPro, the flashlight,
Uh,
and so I I had it recording. I was like following the turtle around. It's funny. Saw the turtle, went up for a breath, came back down, got it worked out of the log pretty good. One thing about them is you got to be either quick or strong, is because they'll push themselves up and get themselves really stuck in those crevices if they're solid. So got that turtle out pretty quick, brought it up to the surface, was swimming it over to my coworker, and like I gotta snap my turtle. Um, got it all the way to swam it all the way to land, and started to, I think, walk, like step up, finally stand up, and I let go of the flashlight and it swung around, and the turtle snapped down on my GoPro, and it survived. It recorded the whole thing, but there was a big hole in the back of the screen, and was not waterproof anymore. But it was that was a moment that was pretty funny to me, pretty interesting.
that's crazy. That's why, yeah, you got to be careful out there. Like they can do some damage. Yeah, that's. I mean, that's fascinating. What you mentioned, just seeing some of them out in the open, like the video that I'm recalling, it was not. It was kind of nestled under one single long log, but it was
Hmm.
mostly out in the open. And it's like I've never. I've seen a handful of them. I've been around people catching them a lot more than I've caught, but they're usually, I mean, they're buried in there. That's fascinating that you're seeing them, that you were seeing them out there.
Yeah, well, I think one of the ones that come to mind, the one that comes to mind the most when I say I saw one just out in the open. I already had, I think, a male Barber's map turtles, and the males only get this big, the females get quite a bit bigger. I had a male Barber's map turtle in hand. I was kind of just going from place to place on the way back to the boat, and yeah, it was just like this outline of a. I I think that was before we started measuring. That one was before we started measuring them, so I didn't even touch that one. I just kind of saw it, admired it, just hung out with it for a few seconds on the bottom, and kind of just kept going. But it was just out in the wide open, and that's when I have a video of me holding the Barber's map turtle next to its head, and the entirety of the Barber's map turtle was smaller than the head of this alligator snapping turtle, and so that guy was just sitting out wide open. I never even touched him. I think I might have put my hand next to his head for a second, but
That's it. Yeah. That's the one where you did the age comparison, right? Like they're the same
yeah,
age, but look at yeah, that's crazy. Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah, the Barber's Map Turtles was we were. I spent some time at the Colonial Research Institute, and one of the comparisons with them with size that I thought was just wild was we had in so Dr. Pritchard, Peter Pritchard, had the main collection, and then there was a smaller subset collection that was like all of his prized stuff, I guess. And one of the things in there was a series of massive female Barber's Map Turtles, three of them. Forget the exact measurements, but really like exceptionally large specimens. And then he had a male shell. So these are all three females, and then one male shell. And the skull from the female was almost exactly the same size as this full grown male shell. So these largest females, their skulls are almost the same length as a full grown male. I mean, that
Yeah,
was
they're
just
they're crazy dimorphism. I think they're one of the most dimorphic species. I might be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure Barber's map turtles are like one of the biggest differences in size.
yeah, I think yeah, they're it's like 2.53 times the female size of males, but that the
Yeah.
extremes are even greater. So that
Yeah.
yeah, it's really fascinating, and I mean that is awesome that you're doing. I didn't realize you're actually doing a research project with them, and that wasn't just kind of going out and having fun. But
No, yeah.
that's really that's sweet.
I think by the end of it, and like it's something that could be going like ongoing for a while. We didn't, we have all the data. we can crunch the numbers here and there, but it's kind of like we want to get my idea of it is getting all the data before we start like really analyzing it too much. So hopefully next year we do the visual and the hand capture all in one. But I'm yeah, I mean there's so many parts to it too. The one of it is what's the population like now, so we can take those numbers and try to get the analysis going and figure out what the population looks like now. Another part of it is DNA, like where do these things come from? Were they brought in from another river? Are they something that's been there? I don't think there's definitely no, like there's no chance that they were already there, so they were brought in from somewhere else. So we actually went out to every river um, that they're historically found in and took DNA samples from each, like one DNA sample, one or two DNA samples from each of those, and have that. We sent them out. Where it's going to be a while before they get run, but that'll tell us that this barber map turtle population is from one of these other rivers, and that could be, well, we've taken them all from Florida, so there could be a chance that they came from Georgia, but we haven't gotten that DNA yet. But we do have all the DNA sitting somewhere ready to be analyzed.
That's great. That's really interesting. That's a cool element too. And yeah, like having a novel sort of occurrence distribution makes a study or research so much more interesting there because you can do all of the molecular analyses and try to trace back, yeah, where did they come from, how they get there, the historical aspect of it. That's really awesome. Were you, so, did you see any? I'm always curious about this because the Rainbow River, Rainbow Run, the turtle surveys on their poster they send out to prospective people to come down. They've got a picture of a gopher tortoise someone found in one of the springs, and I'm thinking there's something sort of analogous as a box turtle you might be able to find in some of the rivers you were in. I guess you could find a gopher tortoise too, but did you find any aquatic box turtles while you were out there, or was that just more terrestrial?
No, the only thing that comes to mind when we talk about box turtles being weird is I think I saw, or I found my first Gulf Coast box turtle walking along a beach. It was like not like we put it up into the grass. I was on like I was helping out on the sea turtle visual nesting survey or something like that. And yeah, we were walking down the beach. There was a big turtle that I was like, that's not a normal box turtle. I had to like process what it was because my first one. I didn't really think about it too much, but I was like, yeah, that's Gulf Coast box turtle. Um, and it was like walking down the beach, and I was like, it's either lost or it's trying to nest or something. Something was weird. So I like moved it into the brush, into the um, the tree line, and finished our walk down the beach. And on the way back, it was back out on the beach, just walking along the beach. And so that was a weird observation for me. But I haven't seen them. I haven't seen anything crazy in the actual rivers themselves.
Interesting. Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I know some people have tracked them out there, and they'll go, I mean, multiple feet down, like 8 feet down in some of those rivers. But yeah, who knows? Like that's got to be kind of a rare occurrence, and I'm sure not for long. So you'd have to. But yeah, just the thought of that's crazy. You could have
Mhm.
a aquatic box turtle. That's really
Yeah, that could
interesting.
definitely. I mean, just they got to cross the river if they want to get across. How else are they going to get over there? So I could definitely imagine that they've made their way across. But that's probably what it is. It's getting from point A to point B. I don't know if I could, unless somebody like showed me one that just always hangs out in the river. I don't think that they're usually just there's one that just hangs out in there. I think that's point A to point B kind of thing.
Yeah, and I also wonder about the buoyancy too. Is like turtles are constantly changing that by taking water in and out, that sort of thing. But the box turtles are, they're terrestrial turtles, so I don't know. I sort of question how well they can regulate it long periods of times
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. So if you're really gonna, yeah, they're probably just using it as a highway. Maybe they're gonna dive down, or if there's some issue. But yeah, why would you try to exploit a habitat you're not really built for longer than you need to?
There's always a weird one. There's always. So I think a lot of herpers call it the dumb one. Maybe he was just the dumb one, but I'd
Yeah,
say he's
yeah.
weird. It's probably just a weird one.
Trying to evolve into a slider or something like that's, yeah. That's interesting. Well, that's yeah. So I don't know that going back to some of the work you're doing with the spring systems and after again, you mentioned that you're looking to do some sort of educating about teaching about the Florida Springs. I'm curious about that and why you're passionate about those spring systems.
One thing I'm kind of, I don't know how to say it. I was upset about is nobody ever told me how like incredible the springs are in Florida. Like you hear about Florida and you think about beaches and I don't know, palm trees and this and that, but it's like the springs are really the heart, the best thing about Florida in my mind. Um, I got here and saw them, and I want to see every spring now. But I got offered a kind of like a summer camp position for next year. I think I have yet to get like all of the details, but in my what's been told to me is I'm pretty much going to be running a summer camp that's focused on like it's a family thing. The whole family comes out for a week, and we just kind of go into different springs and we talk about what's going on there and why it's important and this and that. And so it's just another step in education. Education is my biggest thing. Like I want to teach about environmental, why to love the environment. Like everybody's kind of getting into different realms of where we live on this planet. Some people never get out from behind the screen. Some people, I like to be kind of find a mixture of both because to teach anymore, it's hard to do things in person like that. So the bigger audience you can reach, the better. And so there's a lot of stuff I have to do from behind the screen and try to do stuff with videos, try to do stuff with education. But I really like teaching crowds, and that was one of the last things I did was an alligator. I was an alligator educator, where I was just like sitting with an alligator talking about having crowds of 100 people come by at a time, and just kind of talking about what's going on. And why you don't have to be afraid of them, and why you should respect them, and this and that, and they're a little bit of their history, a little bit of their anatomy, um, but yeah, for the spring thing, it's gonna be families coming in, and I'm just gonna talk about what's going on there. Try to give them a good time. Try to get them to love Florida as much as I'm loving it. Try to get them to want to protect the springs and not just it's not a place to go and party and just throw things around. It's a place to really respect, and for a lot of reasons, every bit of it, from the clarity of the water and how beautiful that is to the wildlife that lives there to the surrounding flora and the rarity of things now and how they used to be. You compare springs from 30 years ago to springs now, and they're whole different worlds. Like the amount of algae, the amount of just stuff that shouldn't be there that there is now. We gotta figure out some way to getting the more people you get involved, the easier it is to move kind of towards your goals. And the goal should be to restore those springs or to keep them healthy. And so the more people I can kind of talk to, the more I can learn about it myself, because I'm not an expert on this stuff, but I definitely have a perspective that I think should be shared. And I think more people should just get their eyes on it and hear a little bit of the background, and I think they'll fall in love with it too.
Yeah, I mean, that is great. That's cool that that's your goal is to kind of at least part of it is disseminate the information. And I mean, you're really good at that just through your videos and that sort of thing. You've got a really
Thank you.
unique style and it really resonates. And it's not like an academic trying to just force information down your throat. It's like very fun and engaging, and it's a cool thing to see. Like you've had some stuff really blow up, and like that's doing more work than a lot of like 20 research papers. Maybe it's not a super great comparison, but I don't know if you can get 200,000, a million people to view a video. Those are the people that are going to make the decision about the health of the ecosystem, that sort of
Yeah.
thing. And yeah, the Florida Springs are just, I mean, it's so fascinating to me how few people know they even exist or anything about them. It's go to Florida, go to Disneyland, and just the
Yeah.
appeal there is like it's so good for you, the therapeutic aspect of it, the ecosystem, that kind of thing. I mean, I think you could there's some messages where it's like you're probably going to hit a cap with how many people are willing to listen, but the spring protection, I think everyone's going to be on board once they know about it. So it just is
Yeah.
going to take that dissemination, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of my biggest goals is like just trying to take like it's the research is the most important part, but the communication of that research is where there's a big mix up. It's like I think the average person separates themselves from like science. And so we always hear like my the thing I tell everybody is, you know, if I was younger, if I didn't know much about it, I would say when I hear researchers discovered this or scientists found that, I think of like somebody in a lab coat pouring chemicals kind of thing like that. That's what a researcher is. That's who's discovering these things. But it's like it's not. It's people like you and me. It's just people having fun catching turtles in the spring. It's people getting muddy. It's people walking around doing whatever. It's just anybody. You can go outside with an app and like, oh, I just saw a blue jay or a couple crows fly by. You can log that, and that's science. That's data. That's, you know, helping people under. That's helping everybody understand kind of little bits and pieces. So if everybody's doing a little bit of science, it's like that's what's gonna help, you know, the whole world kind of understand the world. So I want to take. I want to try and find the bridge between science and this this not the science and the general community, and try to just distribute that in a way that they understand it to the point where they need to, at least, just to kind of get engaged. It's like finding the bridge between education and entertainment, essentially.
Yeah, right, right. In one of your posts, you said, yeah, that something that you wrote resonated with me. Like, it's social media is built kind of for entertainment. It's not built for disseminating information, but if you can make it, it's like that's the thing where it's sort of from an academic perspective, maybe frowned upon as making it, less whatever complex,
Yeah,
numbers driven, that sort of thing. But it's that's the problem with that viewpoint, right? Is you have to make it like that because most people don't want to go through and listen to a 10-minute documentary about something. It's got to be kind of fast, and
yeah.
you've got a really interesting style, just with kind of the cuts and everything, and the editing is really, I enjoy it a lot. I think a lot of people do, for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's all practice still. Like this isn't the big goal that I'm trying to do. I'm definitely trying to do something bigger, like YouTube kind of thing, longer videos. What I've got now is kind of like what I said about the Hellbender stuff, is I've just got, you know, years of footage that I'd never did anything with because I didn't have anything to or edit the videos with. And now, you know, they made editing so convenient now. Back then I was trying to like import everything to my computer, which wasn't compatible with my phone. And so I had to like get the SD card, swap it over, you know, use this old computer that was made for video processing, but it was when you take the size of the videos I was using and try to chop it up, it took so long. And so getting videos out back then was so difficult. And so now, you know, all these years of footage of just kind of random cool, like I love animal behavior, and I've got all these cool videos of just like animals doing things. So a lot of times when I find something, I'll just sit there next to it. I can't tell you how many hours I've spent in, like, surrounded by frogs calling and just like not done a thing. Just sat there, just listening, or like trying to get up close to one. And so when you take, you know, that all of that, I just want to share kind of my experience with animals in the way that, you know, we hear. I mean, even alligator snapping turtles, turtle snapping turtles, you know, snakes, spiders, everything like that. They get all this bad rep from media. Well, if we change the media, we change the perspective. So I'm just out there trying to prove, I guess, everything that we think we know about things, and showing them my experience with it and being like, that's not quite how it is. Um, because I mean, every animal that they've kind of presented me with that have had a bad rep, I've kind of gone out there and proven, at least for myself, that it's all made up. So I'm just trying to show that part of it. But yeah, hopefully bigger things in the future. Not hopefully, it's gonna happen. I'm gonna make it happen. It's new year, new me. Um, no, it's just figuring out how to do it all. So right now it's kind of all on my own. Making the time for the video editing and figuring out when to post it, and I'm still learning. Like you said, I have a style. I don't know if I have a style yet because I'm still just practicing all the different styles I'm seeing, and it's evolving how you have to do things. It used to be like, oh, just post good content, but now good content, it has to be quick and choppy and very not, you know, formal education kind of style. Um, which is where, I don't know, I think the learning ability of people is definitely evolves too. It's like, yeah, we used to sit behind a desk and have to learn from a teacher, and now if you want to get people to learn stuff, like, make a cool video about it and they'll sit there and watch it and they'll absorb it. But if you just teach it, if you're just talking at them, how much are they actually absorbing? it's just evolution of education at this point.
Yeah, it's really cool and inspiring. Like we're younger, but on this podcast, even we've talked with a lot of people that their older generation. This was not really even a tool that you could use, but now to see people, it's a weird kind of charged tool because there are a lot of people that don't like it. They hate it with a passion, and usually it's people that are from that older generation that just don't understand it, and now we get it. We understand the power of social media, and
Hmm.
there's a fine line between just doing it for views and doing it to spread a message. And what you're talking about, like really tapping into what viewers want to see but kind of pushing a message, is so important. And it's really great to see people
Yeah.
like yourself doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I feel bad if I get a good video. If I get a video that pop off that goes like really big, I feel bad if there's not an educational aspect. So a lot of times if it does start going off, I go in and at least change the caption to have something in there, try to do something to get some education. So people are seeing, if they get any interest, even if it's like one person out of the, hundreds of thousands of people, if I change one person to be like, hey, I like this a little bit more because I learn about it now. It really only takes those couple people that get like really involved, and it's hard to, you're never gonna know who you're actually reaching or what you're changing in the world. But if there's difference, a difference to be made, and it's anything positive towards what I see should be good. In my I think we share pretty similar beliefs, and who what we want to get shared out there. And if people are absorbing that, even just a couple, it makes me feel good.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, we can start to kind of wrap things up. I think this has been really interesting. I have there are a few things to like to just kind of end up on, but I'm curious what you think. I don't think there's we've asked this to not everyone, but a decent amount of people. It's just all different answers is interesting. But why is it that people should care about turtles?
Turtles are one of the craziest animals there is. They're like the tankiest little things. The evolution of the turtle, it blows my mind because you look at every other thing on the planet, and it's like one of the longest lived species. They're even it hurts to see it, but like I've seen so many turtles like run over on the road and survive. Like parts of their body hanging off, their shells broken apart, so much damage. Even like some of the spring samples, you see the damage on those turtles on there, like broken shell, like completely broken, or it's almost leather now on the top of some of those wounds. But they heal. They come back from it. You see alligator snapping turtles or other turtles with like bullet holes in them, and it's like we're out there disrespecting them and stuff like that. But we're hurting them in our mind, like that would kill a human, taking a bullet like that. But they don't have doctors out there. The turtles don't have people they don't have a doctor to go to. They don't have the emergency room, the hospital to go to. They just sit there and heal up on their own. The resiliency of the turtles, the fact that we're seeing a decline in them, really should scare us because those are some of the hardiest animals, and they're starting to disappear. So what else has already kind of gone? What else is how bad is the situation if the hardiest animal is kind of falling off? So it really comes back to us, and I don't like focusing on the human aspect of why we should save the animals, the planet. It should be about keeping these things that have been here this whole time, giving them their respect and keeping them alive. But for people that need the perspective of humans, if we're seeing hardy animals die off, it's going to come back to us at some point. It's we live so choppy. We are so focused on what's happening every second of every day. We're not looking back at how things have changed over the past decade. We're like, oh, this is normal because normal is evolving a little bit more every day, and we're just seeing it kind of in that day. But yeah, if you compare data if you compare the way things were a long time ago to compare to how it is now, it's the difference is so bad. The world is never going to be the planet's never going to be how it was before we kind of came in and clear cut everything and polluted what we did and this and that. But the fact that we're seeing turtles decline, it really comes back to us, and it's not going to be too long before the impact is going to be more than we can handle. So at the very least, for human reasons, we need to protect turtles to protect ourselves.
That's an awesome message, and yeah, it is frightening. The rate too. Thinking about the first derivative of sort of how things are happening, the rate of destruction that humans are sort of how fast things are progressing. We're losing these, like you said, long-lived, hundreds of millions of years, this lineage, and we're doing this in the matter of a few hundred years, a few
Mhm.
thousand years. It's pretty catastrophic, and not really. It's hard to envision even. It's such a increase, and yeah, it's
I like to
really.
I like to try to take the perspective of like a box turtle here. Like they can live a long, long time, and say like one of the oldest box turtles out there in the wild. You know, potentially 100 years ago, they weren't seeing. There were no roads through habit like most of their habitat. They probably lived in a big open plot of land with like just trees and whatever, was going on out there. And then it's just like highway put in and fences put up and something cutting off their supply and new. So like in one lifetime of these animals, it's gone from an evolution is supposed to take millions of years, hundreds of thousands of years. These guys have to evolve within one generation onto like what we're doing to their habit to the world for them. And so it's we're adaptable. We're very adaptable because we have all this technology to adapt with. Like we have a lot of help. They have no help. They're out there on their own trying to evolve in a world that's developing around them. That's just wild. So the perspective of a box turtle that used to live in an open range, in a field or in the woods, and now there's just highways and all kinds of things cutting them off from other places, and now there's a new threat. It's not something that wants to eat them anymore. It's just cars on the highway that are out there to run them over. So that's what I think about a lot. Is that and like trees even a 500-year-old tree? What have they seen?
Yeah, thinking about it from the animal's perspective, really interesting practice. Like that's yeah, we could use a lot more of that. That's cool. Yeah. So I'm curious for you personally, where do you see yourself in 5, 7 years, and what are your goals? We talked about social media, that kind of thing, but what else?
So I've got a handful of like little not little missions I kind of want to see happen. And one of them, I'm just gonna give you like what it's focused, what the goal of it is. And the goal of it is like this is not a mainstream field. You think of what people want to do when they go to school, graduate high school. You want to be a doctor, a lawyer, something that makes a lot of money. How many people think about being a biologist? I didn't even know a biologist was like a real position until I went to college. So it's like it needs to be. I want to make it more mainstream. I want to make protecting the environment a job that people just like instinctively, oh, that's one of the things I can do as an adult. So my goal is to kind of start pushing biology and conservation into mainstream stuff. And so social media being what it is now and how influential it is, not on my own, obviously. And, I want to try and just get an army of everybody to try and kind of push social media or push conservation to just be a little bit more normal. Um, and hopefully that makes, the wages of even biologists go up. And this that's you asked me for 5 to 7 years. I'm giving you like my life kind of goal, is to make this something by the time I die. Hopefully, it's more common to be out there protecting the planet. Because I mean, it's probably going to be come to a point where we're going to have to. I think everybody's going to have to buckle down, or it's going to we talk about the extinction of humans. And I like to think about the other side where we actually come together and don't make that happen. Um, but no, I think the more we can push social media, the more we can push conservation through social media or through education some way, into being more mainstream and hopefully getting wages brought up and um, people just knowing about it. It's not even a disinterest; it's just the ignorance. People don't know about it. So I think that's the biggest thing is just bringing it to light. And my way of doing that is going to be hopefully a good series a series on YouTube or something like that where it's just showing people how it actually works and just the behind the scenes of what's going on. It's not just people in lab coats. It's not the stuff that we don't have interest in. If you knew about it, you'd be very interested in it. So I'm just trying to bring that stuff to light. I've got, I mean, tons of videos from the surveys, um pretty much everybody I volunteer with, and I volunteer with as many people as I can. The species that I've worked with, it's not just reptiles, it's not just amphibians. It's I've worked with owls, I've worked with bats, I've worked with sharks. I've worked with a lot of animals, and I just kind of want to put that all onto a series and just show people what goes on behind the scenes.
That's awesome. Yeah, expanding out into some other areas like YouTube, that kind of thing. Yeah, that's sweet. And just yeah, that's a great goal to have. I think we all kind of have to have that, as the upcoming generation. We got to really find ways to make it more mainstream and make people understand that it's important, right? That's the
Yeah,
whole thing.
and I love
Protect the
what you're doing.
biology.
Like this is a beautiful way to get information from the research from the people that have been doing it their whole lives. This podcast is an incredible way to get information spread out in a way that maybe on their own they haven't quite been able to. So
Yeah, I
I really
appreciate it.
appreciate you having me here.
Yeah, yeah, thanks. I mean, yeah, this is like it's the endeavor. We just started it out, we just a group of friends wanted to talk about turtles, and now it's like, dang, you build a little momentum, and it's not gonna. I think we realize it's not gonna be the next like Jeff Corwin, that kind of thing, but at least
Hey,
if
it
it's a
might. You tell
yeah,
yourself and it
well,
won't. If you tell yourself it won't, it won't. But I'd say don't do that to yourself. Just
all
keep
right,
pushing forward.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, yeah, just yeah, I guess keep don't necessarily sell yourself short. That's good advice. Yeah. Well, I think that we'll just sort of wrap it up with I'm curious what piece of advice or what's one or multiple piece of advice you give to someone looking to make the sort of wildlife turtle work a career. That's
Okay, so I don't want to. I don't want to say college is not what necessary. They make it necessary, but it's really the biggest thing I got out of college was the connections. So if you can start talking to people and start volunteering, start getting start talking with other people and getting your passion out to them, and helping them out. The networking and the connections is the biggest thing that you need to work on. So yeah, definitely get a solid foundation of knowledge. I learned way more after college when I started doing my wildlife jobs than I ever did in college. College taught me kind of how to do research a little bit. Actually, not even too hard on that. I did a lot more learning how to actually do stuff when I finally got a job.
oh my god,
Um,
yeah,
so definitely just start talking to people, start reaching out. Don't be afraid to look like an idiot. First impressions do matter, but if you can do a little bit of research on them, kind of figure out who they are, what what they like. If you talk to somebody about what they like, or get them talking to you about what they like, that's a good way to do it. So definitely just don't be afraid to reach out to people, and just start making connections now, because the more people you know, the more people you have good connections with, the further you'll go.
that's awesome. Yeah, I'll take it to heart for sure as I'm still doing school and everything. And like, yeah, that resonates with me for sure. Is like, yeah, that it's so much. I've learned so much more just in the field with people and that kind of thing. And yeah, from my perspective, I have a little bit of a strange like. I'm doing some more things outside of the biology realm, and so some of that, like the math, that kind of thing, is easy to learn. Not that you couldn't do it on your own, but it's nice to have a mentor. But like, if you're just going for the biology stuff, I feel like that totally is, that's
Mm,
like all the connections, all that kind of thing.
yeah.
And like maybe if, yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of like a intellectual masochist sort of. I like to subject myself to stuff that is like probably too challenging than it should be. But otherwise, I wouldn't recommend that for most people, but it's like, yeah, but yeah, that's awesome, and I think people out there, yeah, definitely take it to heart. Um, so we'd like to finish off. I mean, with a little bit of like a round of turtle trivia or a
Yeah.
few questions or anything. I don't know if you got a few random turtle facts you want to hit me with, or I can hit you with a few, whatever.
Uh, you go and hit me with a few. Let's see. Let me think if I got something that comes to mind.
Okay, that's a good. Okay, here we go. This is a good random. I think I've got the number right. But so they're Trachemes, the slider genus. Um, there's a number of species in that genus. And right now, like we said earlier, I'm in Puerto Rico, one of the Caribbean islands. There are a number of trachemes on Caribbean islands. And my question is how many taxa and how many species? But just one of those is fine. You'll get full credit for that.
How many species are on that island or on your island that you're on?
Well, no,
Puerto
just
Rico?
on Caribbean islands in
On
general,
okay.
like trachemes. Yeah.
How many trachemy species? Hmm. I wasn't thinking there were too many out there. I guess I wasn't thinking about them. Hmm. I'm gonna give you a low number and hope that I'm not way off, but it's probably like 3 or 4.
It's actually close. I think I calculated this a few days ago. I think it's 7. It might be
7.
so. Well, for species, 4. Yeah, you got it right. For species,
Okay.
there you go. For taxa, it's 7 because yeah. So 7 taxa, 4 species. It's definitely 4 species. The taxa might be subject to debate, but
Okay.
yeah, that's good
Can you
job.
name some of them? What are some examples out there?
Yeah. So the Puerto Rican slider is Trachemys stagnegeri. That's the one that's here, and I saw
Okay.
those recently in Calabria. The Hispaniola slider is Trachemys. It's decorata, I think, and then Trachemys decusata is the Cuban slider. I might have those flipped, but it's one of those two. They've got similar names. And then Trachemys terrapin is the Jamaican or Cuban slider. And there's 2 subspecies of the Puerto Rican slider, Vicina malinae, and there's a subspecies. I think decusata is the Cuban slider, and there's 1 subspecies of that, Angusta. So that's 7 taxa. I think that's 7 and 4 species.
Okay. I've got a less of a trivia and more of a kind of fun fact, not really a fact. So in general, you think of spotted turtles as kind of being solitary usually. There's populations where you can find them like kind of all within a certain area. But in some of my experience, I've come across places where they'll bask 12 on a log, all in the same exact little spot. And so that's a like within the whole species, they're generally this way or that way. But individually, I mean, there's always weird groups, there's always weird individuals. These ones all just kind of come together in a little spot in South Carolina, and they all hang out kind of right around each other, like a pretty big population. Um, and so I guess that's my less trivia, more interesting little fact. Um, I think that was it. That was it.
No, that's interesting. No, that's not where you'd expect spotted turtles to be
Yeah.
generally. That's not yeah,
Yeah,
that's
during the right
cool.
time of year, the water comes up and there's just this log that, you walk, if you're careful and they don't see you first, you can walk out to and there just be, a line of spotted turtles just hanging out in one little spot.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think I've heard was Parker around? Is he help with some of that stuff that you did?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's seen the
Yeah.
log.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I've seen some of his photos, that kind of thing. Cool, really interesting. And yeah, they're like I don't know. The association with spotted turtles ends kind of in Virginia, but then they go all the way down to Florida. Have you seen
Mhm.
them in Florida?
I have not seen them personally in Florida, but I'm looking at spots where there's like records every 2 or 3 years. Somebody sees one in a couple of different areas, and I'm trying to be the next one.
Dang, yeah. At some of those spring surveys, it's I won't say what, but yeah, it's the number of taxa could increase because maybe you could find something around there,
Yeah,
but
that'd be
yeah,
that'd be a wild one to add to that. Jerry would
yeah.
go crazy for
uh,
that. That's for sure.
Yeah, that would be insane. That would be the chicken turtle for sure in there. That would be wild. All right, well, we'll wrap it up. This has been awesome. I'm bummed that it was just us. It would have been fun with the whole group, but maybe we'll have to have you back on or something, or we'll find
Yeah,
some
let's get
way to,
around and
you know,
let's go. We
yeah,
should do more. Let's do some spring surveys or do some whatever you got going on. Let's go do
yeah,
some more stuff.
yeah, for sure. I mean, I usually this semester I'm kind of stuck in Athens, but let's definitely, yeah, it's more of the springs. I got to get down to more of those and definitely
I
connect
mean,
more.
let
Yeah.
me know what there is to do around Athens. I'll make a trip.
All right, sweet. There really isn't much, but there might.
Yeah.
I I'm gonna start up a project soon, hopefully. That's looking at the sliders, and we're gonna try to see like what's the how many hybrid sliders are in the
Okay.
county there, and actually use like the population genetics to kind of figure that out. So when we do that, I don't know, it's not super exciting, but there's snapping turtles, cool stuff. So I'll let you know for sure.
I appreciate all the turtles.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. That's refreshing to hear. Yeah. Well, cool. And we'll definitely yeah, keep in touch and hope to connect in
Absolutely.
the field more. All right, sweet.
Absolutely.
This is
Thanks for having
with
me.
Devin. Yeah, yeah, for sure. If there's anything you want to close out with too, we'll just end it. But
Just the same point I was talking about, unity. We all got to come together to make things happen. So if you took any inspiration, don't be quiet about it. You got to talk. You gotta show it. You gotta bring it out.
sweet. All right, that's awesome. And we'll see you guys in the next one.